So that's a really interesting question. My parents were both Methodist pastors, so I spent the first about 10 years of my life in a lot of church, and then my views kind of changed, and I took almost a negative approach to church. And so for a long time, I was in this spot where like church was the place where you went, like if you wanted to be yelled at and if you wanted to be tried to shove into this box, and that's what I thought of church as. And then I came to Simpson, and I met not only our religious life community, but I saw church in kind of a different light. The best example I have is that there's a professor here named Professor Everhart. She's a professor of religion. And like I said, I identify as atheist, but I have been to her church a couple times, and it is a bilingual church in Des Moines that really focuses on like community and different things like that. So that's the first thing I would say is that when you use the word church, kind of be careful of what you're putting into that word. So what you think church is and what church could really look like can be different, can be two totally different things. But what I would also say is that the feelings that a lot of people have towards church are not founded in nothing, if that makes sense. So like, if you carry negative feelings towards other types of churches or experiences that you've had, like, those are valid feelings to have. And we've talked a lot about dialogue, and I think that that is a really good place for dialogue to exist. So if someone comes up to you and says like, hey, we're going to church tonight, and you say, I don't really want to, and they kind of push you on it, like, this is a chance for you to explain like why you chose that and what that means to you. So whether that's because you've had a negative experience or because you just don't want to go to church, but just kind of letting that be a place of dialogue, I think, is really important.
I also think, so I'm not atheist, but I am non-Christian. And sometimes people ask to go to church like out of goodwill, sometimes it is not out of goodwill. But I think ultimately for me, it's about identifying some common values and telling your story. So if you don't want to go to church because it has hurt you, that's valid, and it's okay to recognize that. And I think telling your story, if people are getting pushy with you, can actually do more than you think it will. I will also add that it's one thing if somebody's like being a little pushy and then leaves you alone after you tell them no for like the 6th time. If they are harassing you, trying to get you to go, our chaplain, Mara Bailey, can help you out with that and help you identify some solutions, because there's a difference between somebody making you feel uncomfortable and somebody making you feel unsafe.
All right. How do you deal with people not believing your identity, especially if they think you're just saying it because it's the new thing, or because it's trend, or whatever?
No, I don't know. I've had different responses as like I've come into my identity with like levels of how people believe me. But I think the one biggest thing is that I'm Mexican and like I'm white. Like race and ethnicity are like two different things. I'm not gonna get into that. But so like when they ask like, hey, what's your race? On like little cons, like I check white. It's like look at. But so saying that, and then they're like, I don't know, there's just like, people just start asking questions, because I say I'm Mexican, and I don't look how they think I'm supposed to look like. I'm not like the stereotypical, like, what they think a Mexican looks like and things like that. And I mean, that affords me like a lot of privilege as well, because I walk through the world and people think I'm white. And then I walk through the world and people thinking I'm like cis and things like that, cisgender. And so it's just, I don't know, because like, here mostly, like even if there's like some confusion, I'll usually just like explain it and we're like, oh, okay. And then like we continue on with just our lives and things like that. But just in terms of like sexuality and things like that, that's I think where a lot of people sometimes, like where I've heard it anyway, but people's like, oh, you're just saying that, da, da, da. Because like sometimes people do change like labels. Like that. It's like, oh, you were faking it, or like, oh, like, well, now you're just lying, da, da, da. But like, finding your identity and like, the only thing you really choose is like how you label yourself, and if you want to label yourself. And so, even if that changes the person who they are, I think like inherently really doesn't. And so it's just forming those bonds, and and if people don't believe you, they don't, and like, maybe they're not worth hanging around and things like that. So they're just like taking care of yourself as well. And again, if there's someone that's really pushing and things like that, and like you don't feel safe or you just don't, need some way to like cut them off, there's resources available.
I'm also just going to reiterate that telling your story can be really helpful, but sometimes telling your story is all you can do, and they're just going to like maintain that viewpoint, and it sucks. But like don't spend so much of your emotional labor trying to get them to like believe you, and maybe just reconsider whether or not you need that relationship.
One thing I will say, in addition to like all of that's been said, I agree with, is don't feel obligated to tell your story if it's not something you want to share. It's not your responsibility as a person of this identity to come forward and try to educate everyone around you. That's something I've really struggled with personally. And if it's something you want to take on, there's a lot of resources online as well to help you educate people on your identity and everything like that. So yeah.
All right, this next question is a little bit more generic that probably all of you have experienced in one way or another. It's been super weird to start conversations and make new friends. How do I start a conversation and make friends without seeming like a creep?
First of all, I just want to say you're not a creep. Whoever you are out there, I think you're great. I came from a really small high school, which means there are 0 people. Well, now there's 1, wherever Susie's at. We came from the same high school. Anyway, there were 0 people from my high school here, so I knew not a single person. And I think it's important to remember that that is most people's experience. Most people sitting in this room right now probably know like 10 people if they're good at remembering names. And that it's easy to kind of look at upperclassmen or even sophomores and juniors and say like, oh, like you have so many friends, you're in so many things, like I could never get there. But I think it's important to just keep in mind that all of us sitting up here were sitting there and knew 5 people's names, and then we became presidents of fraternities and things like that. So like, it's important to remember that like, no one knows anyone, so you're not a creep. Ask about their favorite color or fruit. Let's start a conversation.
Yeah, you're not a creep. I came from very far, so I really knew no one. And it's a very small campus, so eventually you're going to know a lot of people. But take advantage of this first week. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of events, a lot of organizations and clubs are putting out things for that reason, so that you can meet new people and make new friends. So this is the time to do it, so no one's a creep, because we're all making new friends. So just take advantage of those opportunities, because people put a lot of effort into making you feel comfortable and helping you create new relationships during this first few days. And yeah, and don't stop making new friends even though it's not the very first days. You can make a friend anytime during your time at Simpson.
I get cerebral palsy. I probably shouldn't mention that really, but it can be a little bit difficult and maybe uncomfortable at a discussion with me. But I say that no matter who you are, just get out there and go to all the activities that they said, and be patient with people. Sometimes it can be kind of crowded and hard to hear, and you might not know to make a connection right away, but just keep doing that and just keep putting your personality out there.
Yeah, I would also say this Welcome Week is literally designed to connect people. All the wonderful people in student development, which by the way, they are wonderful people, put a lot of effort into creating this intentionally to be able to meet up with everyone, to be able to kind of reconnect with the campus at the beginning of the year. So take advantage of that. Go to the events, go to stand around tonight, go to all the activities that are planned. And also remember that it's whatever you're feeling, the other person's probably feeling too, and is just excited that you're willing to take the initiative. So be willing to take the initiative and introduce yourself and start conversations.
All right, next question. If you have a roommate and you don't know how they identify, how do you go about asking them?
I'll kind of answer that. Just, Lewis kind of hit it on the head earlier. Just like, if you come from a place of sincerity and honesty and try to ask questions to, like any of us or most people that are in our communities, like, we're not going to take it offensively. You know, if you're coming from that genuine place of trying to figure things out. Even like me and Cecilia, we're both seniors, so we've been on campus for 4 years. And sophomore and junior years, I would mess up their pronouns sometimes, and they never got mad at me. You know, because as long as you're genuinely trying, I would find it hard to believe that somebody's gonna really take something too offensively. If you come from a place of honesty and genuineness, go ahead and ask those questions. That might be kind of awkward, but you guys can have those conversations and get to know each other a lot better.
Yeah, like I echo that, and so just, I think especially since it is like your roommate, you know, you're living with this person and things like that, I mean, like start small, like, hey, where are you from? Don't just jump into like right away, just like, hey, tell me like your backstory, like, you know, like, what are you? But like, sorry, like, yeah, just like start small, like, you know, it'll come up, I think, organically. It's just like how you identify it is just sort of exemplified, I think, a lot of times, and just how people are, and like, things like that. You know, people will just like let things slip like casually if you just like pay attention how they like say certain things, or like, oh yeah, like da-da-da, my partner and I, and like da-da-da, or things like that. And then just like later on, if you notice like interests and things like that, then maybe, you know, like in private, like when you're back in the rooms, or, you know, talk about it, or like if they're decorating and they have like a flag on it, you know, like you don't know what the colors mean, like ask about it, like, things like that. And just being like genuinely, you know, trying not to make them uncomfortable and things like that. And if, you know, they do provide you like, oh, this is how I identify, and then you're like uncomfortable, like my roommate's gay kind of thing. Talk to your CAs. Like a lot of them are like, they're all trained on like how to like mediate and things like that. And so if like that's a discussion you are all willing to have together, again, there's that dialogue that can happen. You know, a lot of these things might come just from like misconceptions that you have, and like it's just questions that you want for me to answer, to like for all of you to feel comfortable, and things like that. So.
All right. Why do you use cisgender instead of straight?
That's just different things. Okay, so gender and sexuality are two different things, and so they're two different ways of living. So straight is heterosexual, so it's like you are attracted to somebody with a different gender than you. But cisgender, it's like not that. So I think we should be.
Cisgender is related to your gender identity, whereas straight is related to who you're attracted to and who you want to have a relationship with. A lot of people haven't heard the term cisgender, and this is something kind of interesting I heard, is it's like a way to know if you have a privilege is if there isn't a word for it, or if you've never heard a word for it before, then it's probably a privilege. So like, being cisgender is typically inherent. You assume most people you meet are cisgender. But yeah, that's the thing with terminology. They're two different things. One thing a lot of people really struggle with who aren't educated in like LGBT issues is the fact that like, I'm a trans man, but I'm still attracted to men. That confuses a lot of people, but I heard a quote and it was basically like your gender identity is who you go to bed as. So like I go to bed as I'm a man, like I go to bed as a man, and sexuality is who you go to bed with. So there you go.
I think something else is that a lot of times people will be like, oh, like, why do you even say cisgender? Like, that's just the norm and that's what we'd assume. And for me, I usually include that as part of my identity because I think it takes some of the pressure off of people
who don't identify as that to try to break that norm in some way. So like if we just stop assuming that everyone is cisgendered and we say that, and we say when I meet you and you ask for my identity, those things, I think it takes some of the pressure off of people who might feel like they need to constantly explain their identity.
Yeah, and it's kind of like othering to say like men and trans men. Like a lot of people wouldn't say trans or say men and cisgender men. It's just like because it's inherently assumed the norm.
All right, this is probably, as we're running out of time, probably the last question. And probably applies to all of us. Is it frustrating that you actually have to explain any of this stuff to people that we've been talking about this morning?
Oh boy. There is a term, and I might get this wrong, Walter Lane might correct me. I think it's called battle fatigue. So even you guys sitting and hearing us explain all of this is probably exhausting, and sometimes it is just exhausting to always be the person of color in the room, or to always be the one with the identity that's a little bit different, and to feel like you are in a place where you have to explain it. So I'm a first generation student, and the amount of times that I'm in rooms where like that comes a question and I'm asked like, what does that mean? Like, how are you in college? How are you succeeding? And all these things, like, it's exhausting to have to explain something that feels so normal to me all the time. So what I would say to that is that there are a lot of people, and we're kind of exemplified up here, who do want to take the initiative to kind of explain our identities and explain what that means, because we find a lot of value in these conversations, but that also shouldn't always be expected. So if you're the minority in the room, or if you identify as something different, you shouldn't always expect them to know what's going on. It's like if we're talking about slavery in class, don't look to the kid of color. He doesn't know any more than you.
I know for me, I find a lot of joy in explaining things for people of diverse backgrounds. So like Jalen said, a lot of times in the classroom when I'm a poli-sci major, so when issues of homosexuality or color or stuff like that, they kind of look to me. I remember me and Cecilia were in a class that's basically just about debating each other in political science, and everyone would always look at one of us when something of diversity or something happens. I really find joy in that. I like talking to you guys or anybody else. You know, I'm a senior now, so giving back to you guys and trying to educate the next kind of people that are going to form Simpson College is something I find really enjoyable. So unfortunately, I'm not leading any small group sessions after this, but if you guys see me on campus or want to come down to SAE and have a conversation with me about anything, you know, I would love to have those conversations whenever you guys get. I have a few minutes after this. You want to come down here and ask me a question or whatever. I'm always open and I'm always willing to have those conversations with anybody who wants to. But kind of like Jalen said, that should never be assumed that like we want to do that or we're always able to give that advice or give that information. But for me personally, I know I love doing that. So anybody out there about anything, if you guys want to come talk to me, I would love to have those conversations when I have time. But yeah, so that's how I kind of take it.
Yeah, and if you're looking for someone to educate you about their own identity, something to always take into consideration is like where you are right now, the context, the timing. And another big thing is to take it upon yourself and educate yourself. Show that you are making an effort. Google is there and it's free and you can use it at any time. And so you can research things a lot. And if there's things that come up while you're researching it that you have questions about, then that's something you could bring to that person and be like, hey, you know, I was trying to like learn some more and I saw this and I wanted to know like your opinion or your experiences, stuff like that.
Yeah, so, like me personally, like,
Again, this is not gonna apply to everybody, as it said, but like I found a lot of like empowerment in being able to tell my own story, just because of like the silencing and things like that that I've like faced in the past and like in my life. And so like being able to like have a space here, knowing that like I'm like safe from like certain repercussions of like being able to tell you my identity and like, not having to be scared is like really empowering, and you know, getting positive reactions back to that, things like that has, I don't know, like personally I just really enjoy that part of it. It does get hard. There have been times where, you know, maybe some of us have like taken it too far, given one too many speeches, been on one too many panels, and like it gets exhausted and things like that. And so again, if you do, even with the best intentions and you do your research and come up with someone and you ask a question and they're just like, okay, like I can't right now, like respect that as well. And be like, okay, yeah, like I'll come back, you know, later, or just like in that moment, okay, yeah, we can go out to lunch instead or something, you know.
Just like Jan said, sometimes I'm the only Mexican in the room, and they assume I know everything about Mexico, and I don't. I wish I did. Sometimes they talk to me about places that they went on vacation, assuming that I've been there, and I haven't. I don't leave my home that often. I wish I did. So just don't assume, but as we've been saying over and over again, how you come about it is very important. So we're all up here sharing our stories, talking to you because we care and because we like it. And it can be exhausting at points, but me personally, I like talking about all these kinds of things, and I'm here because I enjoy it and because I like educating people on important issues. So once again, if you ever see me around campus and you want to talk about something, I'm always open. Also, I live in the Carver House, which is a multicultural house, and if you ever are looking for a place to have a conversation, me and my roommates are happily, we'll welcome you into our house. And just, yeah, I think just being respectful and honest and actually trying to learn from someone is very important.
It is frustrating at times for me, but it's definitely worth it. Just to have people are more about disability and what we just say this campus has awesome. I've made some good relations. And that being said, with all of the cheers in the frustrating, like, for me, it's just sometimes people may not understand why it's valid my faith as much as I do, but it's just something that's really to me and it changed my life. And so when you explain that to people and you don't use these things as weapons to hurt other people, that's when we really come together and thrive, no matter what our abilities or abilities are.
Very well said. First off, let's take a minute to thank these folks for putting themselves out here. It takes a lot of nerve to get up here and, one, not have a clue what anybody's going to ask you, and being willing to share some very personal things, probably. That, you know, some people, and I'm guessing some of you probably wouldn't necessarily be comfortable sharing at this point. But as was said earlier, one of the things to keep in mind that I think Jalen said is that you're going to hear the term community thrown around here a lot. The realities is we are a community, right? You are now a part of our community, and it's up to you all and them to make this the best place it can be. And the only way it can be good is if you all take advantage of experiences like this and getting to know them and talk to each other and learn about each other. Because if you walk out of here and you're going, that was kind of a waste of time, you're going to go back to your room, you're going to get online and do whatever and ignore all this stuff and not get to know one another and learn what it means to be a part of our community, then you're kind of missing the boat. These folks are all where they're at because they took a risk and stepped out of the box and did something that probably made them incredibly uncomfortable at some point. And I think that's what makes their experiences here what it is, and made them, or gave them the opportunity to be as successful they are as student leaders on this campus. So please do that. The other piece I would say is, if you have questions, ask them. They're happy to answer probably any question that you throw at them. I know that some of them really like to talk, and they're going to talk a lot. And be okay with that, and just bide your time so you know what you got to do if you need to cut them off. But take advantage of the people that are here. Take advantage of the resources. If you don't know who to talk to, come by any one of these places, these folks up here on the screen, or stop by student development, or ask your faculty that you're going to get to know over the next several days, months, weeks, and years. But take advantage of your experience here. The last thing I'd say is that, like I said, you're a part of a community here. And as much as I've been here a long time, I also understand that I am not a student here, I've never been a student here, and I never will be a student here in the traditional sense. I've learned a lot from working with these guys because they push me a lot, but I'm not ever going to be in your shoes going through the experiences that you all are going through right now. And you need to take advantage of this and make the most of it and be comfortable enough to engage our community, be a part of it, and make this the 4 years that you expected when you chose Simpson as your college experience. We want you to have fun, we want you to grow, we want you to learn, we want you to be connected and engaged in our campus community and make the most of these 4 years. But don't be afraid to ask people things. Don't be afraid to talk. And most of all, respect people when you talk, but ask questions. I think everybody's happy to ask anything. So with that in mind, thank you very much for the questions. If your question did not get asked today, know that I'm going to type up all these questions and share them with all of them so that they know what